Izuku Midoriya sucked in a sharp breath of air as he gently prodded his forearm with the tip of his 9th notebook on hero facts. It was bruised, courtesy of Katsuki Bakugo. That was the price he'd paid for just pointing out that he should be more careful with his quirk. All it would take was someone getting seriously hurt because of it, and his goal of being a hero would go up in flames from a black mark on his records. They'd both wanted to be heroes as children, and it was one of the only careers that allowed for the use of quirks like his in public. Being able to generate explosions from his sweat had very limited uses outside of combat. As prideful and egotistical as Katsuki had gotten after getting his powers, Izuku still didn't want him to lose his chances of being a hero because if he did, then there was no telling how badly he'd take it. Unfortunately, Katsuki's temper was as explosive as his quirk. Not only had he hit him in the arm hard enough to knock him onto the ground for it, but he'd told him that he was the last person on the planet who had the right to tell him that. After all, without a quirk, what could he do? As he walked the solitary path through the park, a winding stretch of concrete surrounded on both sides by a sea of viridian green grass, Izuku's mind drifted back to that day when the doctor said that he would never get his quirk. He had the extra joint in his toe that indicated that he didn't likely have the capacity for powers like quirk users after the 3rd generation, and none of his family had the luminescent glow present when they used their powers to show they had a heritage power that might have a delayed awakening. Out of all the people he knew, he was quirkless. He was the only one who wasn't special. He was the only one who was worthless, like Katsuki said. The thought made his body shake as he tried to hold back the tears. He could still remember his mother crying that day, apologizing for bringing him into this world without a gift. Without a means to be a hero like All Might, the man who inspired him to become one himself. Those weren't the words I wanted to hear. Izuku thought as he clamped his eyes shut to stop the stinging tears and clenched his teeth. Mom, those weren't the words I wanted to hear. It was a moment of weakness that moved his arm, spurred on by the lingering resentment of his mother's tearful apologies and the taunting of his oldest friend turned bully. Without a thought, Izuku flung the notebook, the culmination of his efforts at becoming a hero, filled with facts and details about other heroes, as far as he could away. No sooner than he had done so did he regret doubting his dream even for a moment, despite what he told himself. If you want to throw a book at someone, make sure it hits the target. A voice said. Izuku's eyes snapped open to see an old man standing in front of him. He wore a black vest and pants with a black trench coat, and he had white hair along with a white beard. Izuku thought that the man is in his late 70s or older, but the most noticeable feature is an eye patch covering his right eye, and in his hand was Izuku's notebook. I'm so sorry. Izuku said and bowed to the man over and over. I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were there. It's fine, kid. The man said, giving Izuku his notebook back, you got eyes for details. You must really like heroes. I do. Izuku said, taking back his book. I want to be one when I get older. But I can't. Oh. The man said. And why is that? Because I don't have a quirk. Izuku said sadly, looking down to the ground. That's all. The man said, raising an eyebrow. Yes. Izuku said, his head still down. People these days depend too much on quirks. The man sighed. They should know that quirks are not everything. That is not a thing that proves they are a hero. Do you really think so? Said Izuku. Back in my day, there were many heroes who didn't need superpowers to be a hero. The man said. You mean there used to be quirkless heroes? Izuku said with surprise as he tried to remember every hero he knew. A lot. Even a quirkless villain too. But. Then why have I never heard of them? Izuku said. Try and search the name, Batman. Said the man, patting Izuku on the head before walking down the path. It turned out the reason why he never heard the name Batman was because he was a hero during the rise of quirk users back when superpower were not common among the population, and most of the heroes during this time had been labeled as vigilantes. During his search, Izuku was able to find out that there were many quirkless heroes during the time like Nightwing, Red Robin, Red Hood, Green Arrow, Huntress, Question, Spoiler, Wildcat. But most well-known of all was the Batman. He was the most well-known in Gotham City, and he had taken down many villains with powerful quirks. Izuku also found out that Gotham City had been destroyed from a final battle between Batman and his arch-nemesis, the Joker. It appeared Joker had hidden a nuclear bomb in the city and challenged Batman to a fight if he wanted to stop it. In the end, Batman won, but the bomb still exploded, turn out it being connected to Joker's heart. But thanks to Batman and other hero, the city had been evacuated. Only Batman and Joker are lost. What he found was very tragic, but it also gave him hope. If there were people out there who can be heroes without a quirk, then he can be one too. Then Izuku's question now was that man also a hero too? Izuku began to research more about the hero during the rise of quirk use. He had searched and found much info and pictures of the hero from that time until he found a picture showing Batman fighting a man in black and gray armor wielding sword. His face showed up, and Izuku recognized it as the old man who talked to him. He quickly clicked the picture. Turned out the man Izuku talked to is not a hero but a mercenary named Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke the Terminator. The world's greatest assassin, he was a famous mercenary known for always finishing the mission and hardly ever failing, but also for how he defeated and killed many heroes. So many in fact, that Stain the hero killer is a child compared to him. He was also wanted by many countries due to assassinating many political figures. The more Izuku read about the man, the more crazy ideas began to form in his head. For the next few weeks, Izuku spent time in the park where he met the man. Arriving every day, he waited for hours on end in hope he will meet him again. Today, class ended early, so Izuku quickly ran to the park and sat on a bench near there, waiting for the man again. Izuku sat there waiting until the sky went dark. It looks like he's not showing up today. Izuku sighed. He began the walk back to his house. After finishing his dinner, he continued his research about the quirkless heroes and villains. Yesterday, he learned about a villain named Bane. Then Izuku stopped working as he saw Slade standing in front of his house, ringing his doorbell. A few minutes later, his mom opened the door to answer. "Long time no see, Inko," Slade said. "Why are you here, grandfather?" Inko growled, glaring at the man. "Why are you here, grandfather?" Inko growled, glaring at the man. Izuku stopped upon hearing what his mother said. She called Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke the Terminator, her grandfather. But that's impossible. Izuku had once asked his mother about her grandparents and she said that both of them had died in a car accident. Izuku. Inko yelled in surprise, noticing her son was there. It didn't take Slade long to realize who Izuku was to her. "So, this is your son?" Slade said, looking at Izuku. "How long were you standing there?" Inko asked her son. "Is it true that he is your grandfather?" Izuku asked, looking at his mother in disbelief. Inko looked at her son. At first she was about to say no, but he will know for a fact that she lied. Izuku is very smart for a kid his age, and she knew why, so there is only one thing she could say. "Yes. He is my grandfather." Inko sighed. "Then, I'm Deathstroke's great-grandson." Izuku gasped in utter disbelief. "When did you meet him?" Inko said, turning to give Slade a demanding glare. "I met him a few weeks ago when he accidentally threw his journal at me." Slade answered truthfully. "And you told him your name?" Inko said. "I found his name when he told me to look up Batman." Izuku answered for him, still not believing how he was related to a villain. "And why did he tell you to look up that name?" Inko demanded as her glare at Slade increased. "How about we sit down at the table and talk about this?" Slade said, bringing his hands up in surrender. "I don't think we can have this talk outside." "Fine. Inko said after a moment of consideration, allowing him inside. The atmosphere in the Midoriya kitchen was very tension-filled. Izuku sat in the middle of the table while his mother and great-grandfather sat on either end of the table facing each other. "So how did Izuku meet you?" Inko said, breaking the silence. "A few weeks ago when I on my way home. Like I said earlier, he accidentally threw his notebook at me and that's how we met." Slade answered. "Is that true, Izuku?" Inko asked, looking at her son. "Yes." Izuku answered without delay. "He told me about how he wanted to be a hero." Slade said. "That is all he dreamed about after he saw All Might's debut." Inko said. "I see." Slade nodded. "And then he found out about how he is quirkless, but you already know the truth, don't you, Inko?" "Yes." Inko sighed. That made Izuku look at his mother with surprise and confused. What does his great-grandfather mean about the truth? "Mom, what does he mean?" Izuku asked in curiosity. "I mean you have my Metal General." Slade answered for her. "Metal Gen." Izuku repeated after him, never hearing of it before. "It's a power that I have, and one that you have as well." Slade said, a slight grin. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise. He's got a power like his great-grandfather. But how come the doctor's tests on him said he was quirkless? "But I don't have an extra joint," Izuku said, making Slade laugh. "Because our powers are not considered quirks." "Huh?" Izuku said in total surprise, never hearing of such a thing. "Let me explain it to you." Slade began. Before quirks showed up, many government tried to create super soldiers to fight for their countries. I was one of them. I was 18 at the time when they gave me a super soldier serum that changed my general. "What is your power like?" Izuku asked, eager to know. "Well, I can think 9 times faster than normal people. I can read, hear, see, or observe something once and I will never forget it. My body also been enhanced. I can move faster, stronger, see further, smell, and hear better than regular people. Also, I can regenerate from anything, even injured tissue, brain cells, missing limbs, and even organs. And before you ask, I don't know why I can't get my right eye back. It just doesn't regenerate for whatever reason. I'm also immune to all poisons, toxins, venoms, viruses, bacteria, diseases, disorders, parasites, allergies, radiation, mind control, body possession, telepathy, and many more." Izuku's mouth hung open after hearing what his great-grandfather can do with his power. That explains so many things. It's true that I can remember every notebook I write, lessons from teachers, and even some events that Kachan forgot about. Also, my injuries heal quick than others and Izuku began to mumble in his excitement. "Is he always like that?" Slade said, looking at Inko. "Yes, sometimes." Inko sighed. "Izuku dear, you are mumbling." That made Izuku stop his own mumbling. "I'm sorry." Izuku apologized in embarrassment. "But then why doesn't my mom have a power like yours?" "You see, my Metal Gen can pass into any of my children and their children as well, but it appears that if they marry someone who has a quirk then there is a 50% chance that the children will get a quirk, but not my Metal Gen, and 50% will get my Metal Gen but not a quirk." "I see." Izuku nodded. "But why didn't mom ever tell me about it?" "Because that gen only brings bad things to our family," Inko said, glaring at Slade. "Inko, listen," Slade began, but she wasn't having it. "I know what you did to my mother and her brother," Inko said. "You trained them to become like you, and abused them if they did not meet your standards. She told me everything you did to her. That explains why Rose never let me meet you." He nodded in realization. "I know. She even tried to kill you to make sure your abuse never happens again, and also to make sure that you will not take my son and turn him into another you." Inko shouted across the table. "Wait. Mom, you said grandmother died from old age. Then how old is he? Izuku asked, looking at his great-grandfather. I also age slower than normal people. Slade simply answered. I may look like an old man, but trust me when I say that I'm young. Could you train me? Izuku asked without hesitation and hope in his eyes. Both Inko and Slade choked on their own tea upon hearing that, nearly spitting it out. No. Inko yelled right away. I have to ask. Why? Slade asked in his own curiosity. I always dreamed about becoming a hero, but many people told I can't do it because I don't have a quirk. Even Kachan. Then you told me about quirkless heroes and villains, so I started studying about them. If they can become heroes without quirks, that means I can too. Izuku said. But why do you want me to train you specifically, Izuku? Slade said. Well. Since I found out that you were Deathstroke, I began to research more about you. You were a quirkless assassin, but despite that, you defeated and killed many heroes and villains who did have quirks, so I think that you can help train me so I can be a hero. Why do you want to become a hero so much? Slade asked him. I want to help people. Izuku simply and honestly answered. To become a hero you must sacrifice many things, your life, your family, and even everything you love. Do you really want to do that? Slade said. If it's just helping people, then you would probably do well as a police officer or investigator. For someone without a quirk suited to heroics, it's an option that's not appreciated nearly enough but necessary. Investigation is often the key to solving cases that can't be stopped with brute force. There was a long silence after Slade finished. Inko looked at her son with worry. Meanwhile, Izuku actually thought about it. Was he really willing to die for this? Was he willing to risk watching as other heroes died next to him, allies and comrades? Even without anything special to back up his wishes, would he still be able to throw himself into danger? When I think about it, being a police officer would be a more realistic thing for me. Izuku admitted after he'd gathered his thoughts a minute later. It would be somewhat safer since when a villain ran amok it was the heroes who rushed into the fray before they did. And since quirks weren't allowed to be used as a weapon, he would be on even grounds with everyone else. In fact, I could probably do well in that sort of field. My mother would certainly be happier that way. That would probably be for the best. Slade said. However, I don't want to settle for that. Izuku abruptly added, jumping up to his feet. Somehow, deep inside, I know that if I don't pursue my dream of being a hero, if I simply took the closest thing to it, I would regret it. Izuku didn't want to simply stand back and say, we need to wait until the heroes arrive, when someone needed help right away. He didn't want to stand back and watch as others put their lives on the line first when he could do the same. He wanted to be at the very front to ensure that he could do everything in his power from the start. Ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a hero. He continued, looking down to his palms. Even when the doctor told me I wasn't likely going to develop a quirk. Even when my mother cried when I asked her if I could still be a hero without one. Even when my classmates mocked me for aiming so high when there was nothing special about me. It was here that Inko looked away in shame for what she had said to her son, never knowing that it hurt him deeply. Izuku's fists clenched and looked straight into the pale golden eyes, unflinching in his resolve this time. I wanted to be just like All Might, a hero who arrives first to help save lives and inspire others with a smile. I wanted to be a hero because it's the best way I can think of to save lives, even if people laugh at me for trying when I don't have a quirk. Even if they say I can't do it, even if they mock me for chasing something so distant, I won't waver. I'm going to be a hero. Inko and Slade looked at Izuku with surprise and awe. For Inko, she never knew that her son was so focused on his dream by this much, and she felt shame for not supporting him. Meanwhile Slade looked at Izuku and somehow it reminded him of people he knew from the past. Batman and Robin. Guess every generation will always have a stubborn brat. Slade thought. I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to be the best one I can. That's why I went to the park every week and waited to find you again. That's why I'm standing here now. I want you too. That's enough. Slade said. I can see that you got the drive and you want to take it seriously, so I guess I will give you a shot. Slade noticed Inko was about to protest, so he quickly raised his hand. Look Inko, I know that what I had done to your mom and her brother was wrong. I was blinded by my own pride and arrogance, and I regret that. But I really care for them. So I promise you that I will not make that mistake again. Besides, your son told us clearly that he will become a hero no matter what, so he needs to prepare for everything. Inko looked at Slade for a long moment before turning to look at Izuku and see his hopeful eyes. She had heard his resolution to become a hero. She had failed him once when she didn't think he could become a hero. She wasn't going to make that mistake again. Fine. Inko said. I will let you train him, but you better keep your promise. Slade nodded before Izuku rushed to hug his mother. After Slade agreed to train him, he brought Izuku and his mother to his home the next day. Izuku was surprised to see his great-grandfather owned a mansion, but it really shouldn't be a surprise considering he was mercenary. Then Slade revealed a training place he had secretly built under it. After that, they began their training. Izuku had to admit his great-grandfather's training was completely insane. He can't move a muscle after the first day, and he had to stay in bed for all of the next day. Slade had trained to the limit of his body and beyond. He also trained him in every form of unarmed combat and martial arts. Izuku learned that Slade was not holding back when they sparred with each other, with Izuku always losing to him. His great-grandfather said it was going to take a lot of experience for Izuku to defeat him. What Izuku needed right now is to master his training and try to hold against him as long as possible. To test how much Izuku had grown and learned, sometimes Slade took him to an abandoned warehouse where he met some gang members and fought them while his great-grandfather hid and watched them fight against him. Slade said that he once took 300 opponents at once, and now he wanted to see how much Izuku can do. Well, Izuku took 100 men at once, all of them not much like his great-grandfather, but is still very impressive for someone his age. Slade also trained Izuku with weapons, and he allowed Izuku the choice of what weapon he wanted to use. Izuku wasted no time as he chose to learn staff and sword fighting, which his answer to his great-grandfather on why he wanted to learn how to use those weapons was how cool Deathstroke was when he fought against Batman with his staff and katana sword. Of course, Slade also taught him how to use ranged weapons like throwing knives and firearms. During training, Izuku learned something that surprised him to the core. His mother is a very good fighter. She trained and worked out with Izuku so much that her body looked like how it was when he was 4 years old. His grandmother, Rose Wilson, had taught Inko how to defend herself from fighting to shooting. She sometimes went with Izuku and Slade to the abandoned warehouse in order to test her skill. What happened made Izuku very fearful of his mother. She was a very kind-hearted and caring woman, always smiling with other people, but God save your soul when you pissed her off like some of the thugs Slade hired tried to force themselves on her when they saw her figure. Let's just say that they will spend the rest of their life eating soup as his mother broke every single one of their teeth. One of them had tried to stab her with his quirk that created a sword. His mother quickly knocked his sword out before using one of Slade's guns and shot the man. Izuku swore that he will never do anything that made his mother angry again, since he didn't want to end up like them. With Izuku spending most of his time training, he spent less time with Kachan, which led to the explosion Quirk Boy thinking that the quirkless loser Deku trying to avoid him and decided to stop him one day. Izuku tried hard to get away from him, but he got surrounded by Kachan and his followers. Izuku tried to tell them to let him go, but they just laughed and Kachan said he needed to learn his place. His instincts brought about by his great-grandfather's training kicked in and resulted in Kacchan and all of his followers beaten down by Izuku, and Kacchan got both of his arms broken when he tried to grab Izuku. After that happened, no one tried to bully Izuku as the rumor of how he took down Kacchan and his followers spread like wildfire. His great-grandfather planned to deal with Kacchan upon hearing what happened with Izuku, but his mother had stopped him and talked with Kacchan's mother. After that, Kacchan did not want to bother with Izuku, and instead the blonde always sent him a dead glare at him every time they were in school. "Are you ready?" Slade said, wearing his old Deathstroke outfit. "Yes." Izuku nodded, looking at his great-grandfather. The two of them stood on the top of a building with Izuku wearing gray and green armor standing in front of Slade. On his back were his two katana as well as a staff, and a handgun was holstered on his hip. Finally, Izuku's hand reached out for a helmet that was like his great-grandfather's but painted in green. Slade waited for him to take it. This was the day Izuku had been waiting for after Slade agreed to train him. This is the day that he became a vigilante. At first, Izuku was hesitant since this is against the law, but Slade said that he need to use all his training in real life, and also it was to let Izuku see what the hero life was like. His mother was also against this, but Slade promised that he will go with Izuku to watch out for him. "Then let's go," Slade said. Izuku quickly donned his helmet and the two began their night. Inside an abandoned warehouse, three men sat around a table full of money. "This looks good," the first man said. "No shit. We hit the jackpot." The second man laughed, grabbing a full hand of money. "Well, pack all of it up. We leave in a few minutes," the third man said. "Those pro-heroes will look around this place after they hear a report. I hate when we change our hideout after every operation," the first one groaned. "But thanks to that those pros will never find us," the second man said. Then suddenly all the lights blacked out. All three men quickly stood up and grabbed their weapons. "What happened?" the first man yelled. "Did a pro show up?" the second one said, looking around and taking out his flashlight. "Not sure. Maybe there's a problem in the system," the third man said before pointing at the first man. "Go check it out." "Sure," the first man said before heading off to another room. The three men never knew that they were being watched as a shadow quickly moved over their heads. "Remember Izuku, walk slowly and do not let them hear you," Slade said through the communication system built inside Izuku's helmet. During the patrol, both of them had encountered a group of robbers who escaped from the police. They followed them into this warehouse. Slade decided that this was going to be the first test to see how Izuku deals with this situation. He stood atop another rooftop nearby and gazed through binoculars to see how Izuku was doing. "Got it," Izuku replied. So far Izuku was doing a great job. He just sabotaged the light system to limit the robber's vision. When he heard the leader ordered his man to check the system, Izuku quickly moved to act the next phase of his plan. "It looks like the system's got a problem," the man said as looked at the panel. "Well, this place is very old, so not surprising," the leader said. "Can you fix it?" "Give me a fey." The man did not finish the sentence as something hard hit him from behind with force great enough to make his face slam into the panel and then fall to the ground. "You hear that?" the second man said, noticing the noise and quickly aiming his gun to the room his friend went in. "Is everything okay in there?" the leader asked, but only got silence as his answer. The two men looked at each other before slowly walking toward the room. From above, Izuku watched them enter the room. He slowly drew the staff from his back, and then he swiftly jumped down behind one of them and knocked his head with his staff. The man fell to the ground while the last one quickly turned around only to see Izuku swing his staff with great force. The staff hit the right side of the man's head and sent him to the floor with his friend. "That's all of them," Izuku said. "Good job. Round them up while I call the police," Slade said before noticing something entering the warehouse. Izuku gathered all the robbers in one place. As he was about to restrain the three of them, Izuku quickly drew his staff and turned around just in time to see a long cloth wrap around his staff and trying to pull it from Izuku's hand. "I see that you managed to detect my presence," a voice said. Of course he did. After all, Slade had trained him to use every part of his senses and instincts. Like the time he made Izuku fight a group of thugs inside a dark room without any light, or sometimes threw a rock at him when he is focused fighting against someone to see if Izuku will notice it or not. The light from the moon gave Izuku enough sight to see who was the attacker. It was a man wearing a ragged black outfit that consists of a long-sleeved shirt and matching pants that tucked into his boots. There was a scarf around his neck, which is what was holding onto Izuku's staff right now. He had messy, shoulder-length black hair and his eyes hid behind a pair of yellow goggles. Izuku knew who this man was. "You're the pro hero Eraserhead," Izuku said with excitement and awe in his voice. Behind his goggles, Shota blinked while Deathstroke facepalmed. His great-grandson is a hero otaku, the biggest one he's met in his life. The kid can spend hours talking about a hero, and once he starts it's very hard to make him stop. Not to mention Izuku's room was full with All Might stuff, which he was sure that no one had a bigger collection than Izuku. "You sound like a fan meeting his idol," Eraserhead said, deadpan. "Sorry." Izuku apologized. "You can say that later when I hand you to the police," Eraserhead said. "Wait. I'm not a villain, they are." Izuku pointed at the unconscious forms of the three robbers. "I see." Eraserhead nodded. "But then I still need to take you down since you are a vigilante." "Okay, Izuku, this is your next test," Deathstroke's voice said. "I want you to take down Eraserhead." "What?" Izuku exclaimed. "But he's a hero." "Yes, a hero who is about to capture you," Deathstroke said. "I want to see how you fare against someone with experience." "Fine," Izuku said hesitantly, clearly not wanting to fight against the hero, but his great-grandfather's got a point. Izuku began looking at Eraserhead and began studying the man, remembering everything he knew about the pro-hero. "The cloth he used to take hold of my staff is a capture weapon made from carbon fibers and a special metal alloy used to ensnare his targets and immobilize them. I need to deal with it first," Izuku thought. Trying to hold his staff with one hand, Izuku's free hand reached behind his back and drew his sword, where he cut the cloth with one swift swing. The sword Izuku held was made from a special metal ordered by his great-grandfather. It can cut nearly everything. Eraserhead was surprised to see his capturing weapon cut so easily, but he quickly rushed Izuku and swung his legs to knock the sword out from Izuku's hand. Izuku quickly balanced himself before swinging his staff to knock Eraserhead back. Then Izuku jumped toward the pro-hero and swung his staff downwards, but Eraserhead quickly dodged to the side. The hit landed on the ground with a loud crackling thud. Eraserhead quickly grabbed Izuku by the head and slammed it to his knee. If it wasn't for the helmet taking most of the force, Izuku was sure that he would have been knocked out. "Your fighting skill is good," Eraserhead said. "But I still think you are holding back." Of course Izuku was holding back. After all, he was not okay about fighting against a hero. Send him a bad guy and he will happily knock them out, but against a hero, Izuku did not like that, but he needs to take Eraserhead down, yet he didn't want to hurt him much. Then he got an idea. Eraserhead watched the vigilante take something from his belt before throwing it to the ground in front of him. A smoke screen popped open and covered Eraserhead's sight, but thanks to his goggles it did not hurt his eyes. Then suddenly, he felt his entire body shake with electricity before he fell to the ground, unconscious. Izuku went to check on Eraserhead to see if he was alright. He just took the man down with an electroshock bolt shot from his staff. "I took out Eraserhead," Izuku said. "Good. Meet me on the rooftop," Deathstroke said. "The police are coming." Izuku nodded and quickly left the warehouse. "Izuku," Breakfast is ready, Inko shouted as she placed the food on the table. Hi Mom. Izuku yawned as he took a seat. So how was your first night? Inko asked. She hoped that he didn't get into any trouble even with her grandfather with him. It went great Mom. I caught a group of robbers. Izuku smiled. Oh. They didn't hurt you, did they? Inko said. More like he hurt them. Slade said, taking his coffee cup before grabbing the remote to turn on the TV. Last night a group of robbers had attacked the city bank and escaped before the police can stop them. The reporter on the TV said. Then the police got a phone report telling them where the robbers were hiding. Immediately, the police and a few pro-heroes went to the robbers' hideout, and saw that the robbers had been captured and next to them is the unconscious hero Eraserhead. Upon waking up, the pro-hero told what them happened. It appears that a vigilante had shown up to deal with the robbers and took out Eraserhead when he tried to capture him. The police had begun investigating anything about this new vigilante. Well, the word got out very quick. Slade said. Izuku. Care to explain this to me? Inko said, looking at her son. Izuku, upon seeing the look his mother gave, quickly told her everything that happened last night. After he finished, Inko then turned to glare at Slade. You told him to fight against a pro-hero. Inko said. He could have been seriously hurt. That is part of the hero's job, Inko. Slade said. Even so, he fought against a pro-hero. Now they will hunt him down. Inko said. I doubt that. Slade said. It's true that vigilantes have been seen as against the law, but most of the pro-heroes never take action against a vigilante as long as they do not abuse their quirks and go on a rampage. Maybe, but now the police have got their eye on him. Inko said. You worry too much, Inko. Slade said. That is the mother's job, Inko responded. In the following nights, Izuku and Slade continued patrolling the same route. Izuku always took out the villain while Slade watched and only interfered when the situation demanded. So far Izuku was doing a good job with only a few times where he was hurt. Izuku thrusted his staff forward and sent the villain flying through the window where he landed outside. He then turned around and gave a roundhouse kick to another villain trying to attack him. Then Izuku felt someone hit him hard on the side that sent them crashing through the wall. The attacking villain had an ape form quirk that gave him a very strong punch. The ape villain then charged through the wall and went to finish Izuku, but before he can do that Izuku found the electricity from his staff was strong enough to take him down. That's all of them. Izuku groaned as he used the staff to help him stand up. Yeah. Slade answered, looking around the house now filled with beaten villains. That guy's punch was very strong even with the armor on. Izuku said. I think that attack broke a few of my bones. They'll heal. Slade said, moving to help his great-grandson. A few minutes later, both of them stood on another rooftop as Slade checked Izuku's injuries. Well, good news is that your bones are not broken. Slade said. But I think we should call it off for the night. I couldn't agree more. Izuku groaned as he felt pain on his sides. That attack would have killed you if it wasn't for that enhanced body. Slade said. I think I will skip school tomorrow. Izuku said. What's a nice girl doing alone at a time like this? Both Slade and Izuku moved to the edge of the rooftop and looked down to see a group of guys surrounding a girl. 5 guys. Slade whispered, turning to look at Izuku only to see that the boy was already gone. Leave that girl alone. Slade looked down once again and saw Izuku facing the group. Look what we have here, some kid wanting to play the hero. The leader said. But boss, he could be the new vigilante. Another guy said. Even so, let's teach this kid how we deal with vigilantes. The leader said before they charged at Izuku. Izuku quickly drew his staff and shot electricity at the first one charging at him, then he quickly grabbed the second man and slammed his head to the wall before jumping up and swinging the staff down on the third guy. He turned on the fourth guy, but then Izuku fell to his knees and clutched his sides, his injuries acting up again while the remaining guys rushed him again. Before they made it to him, the fourth guy fell to the ground, twitching. Slade looked behind them to see that the girl was holding a gun and she just shot the fourth guy. The last one decided to run away by climbing up a ladder near there. The girl ignored him and ran to Izuku. "Hey. Are you okay?" the girl asked. "I'm fine," Izuku said, looking at the guy climbing up the ladder. "Don't worry about him," the girl said, shooting at the wall where the shot ricocheted and hit the guy, causing him to fall back down. "Is he okay?" Izuku asked. "Don't worry, my baby didn't kill him," the girl said. "Baby?" Izuku echoed after her. "Yes." The girl brought up the gun for Izuku to see and started explaining every detail about it. Meanwhile, Slade looked at what just happened in surprise. He's never seen someone who can just make a ricochet hit the target like that. The only person who can do that was. "There is no way," Slade said before dropping down. The girl quickly turned around and aimed her gun at Deathstroke before her eyes rose in surprise. "Deathstroke," the girl said. "You know me," Slade said. Now Slade got a chance to look at the girl. She had pink locks of hair and yellow eyes with crosshairs for pupils. A pair of goggles worn around her head. She wore normal clothes with fingerless gloves. "Of course. My uncle used to talk about you and said that you are the world's second greatest assassin." "Second?" Slade said, feeling slightly offended. "Yeah, he said that you never beat him at shooting because he is the world's greatest shooter," the girl said. "So Deadshot is your uncle," Slade said. "What is your name?" "Mei Hatsume," the girl said. "Nice gun you got there," Slade said. "Of course. I created it," Mei said proudly. "You're the inventor," Slade said with Mei nod. "May I see your gun?" Slade asked. Mei gave the gun to Slade and he began to examine. The gun was a handgun that fit perfectly into her hand. From what he heard, the gun used a special type of bullet that can immobilize any part of the body hit by it. It can knock a person out with a single shot to the head from what he's seen. Overall, the gun is good, it shows the girl has skill. Then an idea began to form inside his head. "Are you free tomorrow, Mei?" Slade said. "No," Mei said. "Then I want you to come to my house. I got a proposal you'll like," Slade said. "Okay," Mei said. Slade gave her his address, then he and Izuku quickly left after restraining the thugs. The next morning Izuku went to Slade's mansion after his breakfast. He got a day off from school since he needed to rest after the attack last night until it is fully healed. He was glad that he got regenerative powers. Izuku opened the door and saw that Mei was already in there. "Oh hey Ravage," Mei greeted. "Ravage," Izuku said in confusion. "Isn't that your name, Vigilante?" Mei said. "My uncle said that was the name of Deathstroke's sidekick." He can understand why Mei would call him that since the name Ravage was used by Izuku's grandmother Rose Wilson and her brother Grant Wilson. Both of them used that name when they went on missions with Slade, so it was not surprising that Mei thought he was a new Ravage. He had thought about using that name, but his mother and Slade disagreed since it's considered a name for a villain by many people. "I don't have my hero name yet and my great-grandfather doesn't want me to use that name," Izuku said. "Oh, so what do I call you?" Mei asked. "Izuku Midoriya," Izuku said. "Then nice to meet you Izuku," Mei said. Then Slade walked out from his room. "Sorry for making you two wait, I needed to get something," he said as he sat down. "It gets you wondering what proposal I wanted to tell you," Slade said, and Mei nodded. "I want you to build equipment for Izuku," Slade said. "In return he will test any equipment that you build." "Deal," Mei shouted in excitement. "That was fast," Slade said, surprised at the girl's quick answer. "Well, the truth is that was the reason why I was in that alley last night," Mei explained. I wanted to test my baby. I see. Slade said. Also there is something I want to show you. Slade then took out a laptop and gave it to May. The girl began reading, and the more she read, the more her smile widened and her eyes sparked with excitement. This design is beautiful, May said. It protects the wearer from impacts such as bullets and blunt trauma. It is powered by absorbing kinetic energy so the user can keep it charged simply by moving. Interesting, right? Slade said. It was made by my son's friend Drive Icon. He got his idea and make a blueprint before he died. You want me to make this for Izuku? May said. Yes. This will help him fight against opponents with superior strength. From the design it can do more than that, May said. From the note, Drive Icon said that the suit can give the user super strength and flight. I'll try to make it and I'll even improve it. I will provide you any material and equipment that you'll need, Slade said. May nodded, then rose to her feet and grabbed Izuku by the hand. By the way, where is the bathroom? Go that way, Slade said. Thank you. Come on, I want to take some measurements for my new baby, May said, and dragging Izuku. Slade blinked upon seeing that before going to grab some coffee. Do you really need to strip me? Izuku yelled from the bathroom. Sorry. I need your measurements and you're taking too long, May said. You asked me to strip in front of you, how am I supposed to do that? Izuku yelled. Slade chuckled upon hearing that. With that girl around, things will be interesting.